In the wake of George Floyd's death, Americans are demanding change not only in police departments, but in corporate America as well. Marilyn Booker, a one-time global head of diversity at Morgan Stanley, who then moved on to other roles at the company, recently filed a lawsuit against the Wall Street giant firm, alleging racial bias for silencing and retaliating against employees who sought to make the firm more inclusive. She was let go in December last year after spending 26 years at the bank. Morgan Stanley notes that 1,500 other people were let go at the same time as part of a broader headcount reduction. They also released this statement to us, quote, "We strongly reject the allegations made in this claim and intend to vigorously defend ourselves in the appropriate forum. We're steadfast in our commitment to improve the diversity of our employees and have made steady progress, while recognizing that we have further progress to make, We'll continue to advance our high-priority efforts to achieve a more diverse and inclusive firm," end quote. Joining us now is Marilyn Booker and her lawyer, Jean Christensen. A very good afternoon to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So, Marilyn, please outline the key facts. So why are you suing Morgan Stanley?
Well, first of all, I want to say I've always wanted to be on CNBC, but I never thought it would be to talk about what we're about to talk about, but I'm happy to see you this afternoon. It's not that I wanted to sue Morgan Stanley. I've spent almost half of my life at Morgan Stanley and definitely the lion's share of my career at Morgan Stanley. But I was fired and I didn't have any options, and that's why I'm here. But I think the bigger part of the story is that I think it's important that I talk out and tell people what happened, because my story is not unique to me. My story is the same story of so many Black people, and particularly so many Black women on Wall Street and corporate America. I just happen to be the messenger, and I'm hopeful that what I am doing will encourage them and give them the strength and the courage, quite frankly, to speak out and tell their truth.
And so why now? Why the timing, Marilyn, in particular, of filing the lawsuit?
I didn't ask to be fired. Morgan Stanley fired me, so Morgan Stanley picked the timing, not me.
Right, but at the same time, if you really had experienced this inequality, this racial injustice at the firm for the 26 years prior, could you have done something about it sooner, perhaps?
I'm going to jump in here, Wilfred. This happens. It's a very common fact pattern, and employees inherently know that if they raise their voice, they know the repercussions that are likely to come. And they manage the best that they can. And that is exactly in the complaint as alleged what Marilyn did to her best ability. She tried to manage it. She did speak up. But the tipping point was the termination after she was speaking out and really encouraging them to engage in serious diversity investments of Black employees.
Marilyn, it's Sarah. I read through the complaint. In it, you allege that Morgan Stanley has deep-seated racially unjust policies that have resulted in alarmingly low and disproportionate numbers of Black and other employees of color amongst its ranks. Just wondering what other evidence you have of this deep-seated racially unjust policies that you accuse them of.
What I want to talk about is the facts, Sarah. First of all, and this is public information, 2.2% of Morgan Stanley's senior executives are Black. 5.8% of Morgan Stanley's employees are Black. And there was a story that was written by the Wall Street Journal in 2006 that talked about less than 2% of financial advisors were Black at the big banks. It is my belief, as we allege in the complaint, that Morgan Stanley is even below that number. And I think that what people need to focus on is, why are those numbers so low? If firms like Morgan Stanley say that they are so committed to diversity and so committed to making a difference, why have those numbers not changed? And why aren't there more people of color, particularly Black people, in those firms and in this business?
Marilyn, I think those numbers, you're absolutely right to point out they're too low. I just wonder, reading all of the announcements over the last 5 years, but particularly over the last few weeks, is that the company acknowledges that and is acting to improve it, particularly over the last couple of weeks, promoting a number of people to the management committee of color and a number of people to the operating committee of color. Nonetheless, Jean, if I can put this question to you, because in the press release, you say Morgan Stanley had decades to get its house in order and improve its record on diversity and inclusion. No more excuses. The statistic that Marilyn pointed out, 2.2% senior executives, not good enough, being black or African American. It's sort of similar, though, to other Wall Street banks. So do the other Wall Street banks deserve to be sued as well?
Well, Maryland's case is Maryland's case. The industry-wide excuse it doesn't fly anymore. I mean, they can say that. That's what they've been saying over and over again. And we heard this in the Me Too movement for the same reason why women weren't on boards and have a seat at the table. It was an industry-wide problem on Wall Street, and that's why women aren't there. It's not good enough because they're claiming that they have done that they have worked on diversity and have been doing it for years. But as alleged in a complaint, Marilyn saw the data in her role as the head of diversity. She knows what the numbers are. And the reality is that from the time they moved her to wealth management to 2019, her budget had been slashed by 71%. So James Gorman is sitting there saying that they've been working really hard on diversity, but year over year, they keep slashing the diversity budget. And then they finally pushed her out. And now suddenly, when it's politically correct to be saying these things, they put one black female on the operating committee, and they put one black female on the board.
I mean, clearly the numbers speak for themselves, Marilyn. At your time and all your time that you were there, did anyone ever say anything to you that was racially insensitive or you know, gender insensitive that led you to this?
I think that people have gotten a lot more savvy around these issues, and it's not about the overt racism that takes place and the overt discriminatory things that take place. It's the things that are much more subtle. And you have to take those in context of what the end results are. So people know not to say certain things, but it's what they do. And it's the behavior that has the impact and makes the difference. We call them micro inequities because that's what they are. They're little things on top of little things that end up in the larger result, but ends up not having a lot of black people in senior positions and even in the organization for that matter.
Marilyn, just to round things off, I kind of wanted to go back to a similar question. Just wanted to come back. Sorry, I'm just getting some interference. My apologies, Marilyn. Some people are talking to me in my ear. I'll start my question again now I can think straight. I just want to come back to the timing. And I guess your role as a global head of diversity and inclusion, you actually left 11 years ago and took another role for around about a decade before leaving. And so I ask again whether or not the lawsuit could have been filed at a different time.
You want me to answer that? Yeah, sure. So first of all, when I was in the diversity role, I do believe that we made progress in that space. As a matter of fact, I know we made progress. And in the last 10 to 11 years, even though I was not in that role, I still was mentoring people. I still provided advice to people, and I did it informally. And I did the best I could to help people who were having challenges at Morgan Stanley. And it got to the point where I didn't think I could sit on the sidelines anymore. And I didn't think I could just give that off-the-record advice, which is what prompted me to talk to senior management about doing something to make a difference to help particularly our young black financial advisors be successful in a system that was designed for their failure. And that's what led to me being terminated, in my opinion, and as our complaint alleges.
So finally, Marilyn, what exactly are you seeking here? Because it is going to take a while to fix these numbers. And are you heartened at all by, you know, James Gorman and so many other CEOs on Wall Street and beyond now committing to higher numbers of African-American recruits and senior ranks and board members that could eventually help address this issue?
Well, saying that they're committing to this and doing it are two very different things. And again, they all said the same thing in the wake of Me Too, and it hasn't really materialized. So suggesting that a $25 million investment in this renewed interest in diversity is going to meaningfully change things, I'm dubious. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take more than $25 million. It's going to take, and more than just a commitment. They have to do it. And I think that's the timing of Marilyn's complaint is about saying, it's time to just do it. Stop saying what you're going to do. Stop throwing some money that in their budget is not a meaningful amount, and really make these numbers change so that people can see that they mean it.
And Sarah, I'd also like to add, and I've said this before, that this is not rocket science. It's pretty simple. You hire Black people, you promote them, you put them in roles and give them responsibilities so that they can be promoted and they're on serious career tracks, and then you pay them. It's just not that difficult.
Marilyn and Jean, we thank you both very much for joining us.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having us.